Welcome to Tech presented by Kaizen, where we will explore common cleaning questions and answers. Let's get started. I would like to introduce Kaizen Zone Joe McChesney.
Hello. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to discuss the recent 2022 solvents updates concerning the EPA Toxic Substance Control Act, better known as TSCA. And there's been a lot of changes in it in the last couple of years. And recently this year in June and July, there was even more updates. So we want to bring this opportunity to you for your information. By now, you probably know that laws governing the use of hazardous cleaning solvents such as MPB, TCE, methylene chloride, perchloroethylene, and others are under current EPA review. And they've been such for the last couple of years. In 2020, the EPA did release the chemical risk evaluations. In June, it was for methylene chloride. In August, it was for NPB. In November, it was for TCE. December, it was PCE or perchloroethylene. And December, NMP, N-methylpyrrolidone. And what it has in common that when these chemical risk evaluations were released to the public, there was a lot of companies that said, okay, if you're using these solvents, consider conversion now. Because the EPA reports basically contain statements, direct statements, that the EPA has determined the use of these substances presents unreasonable risk to human health. And these are public documents you can assist. Copies of these reports are available. Examples are one for N-bromopropane, MPB, or trichloroethylene, TCE. And what are the unreasonable risks to human health? Well, basically, it's solvent exposure. And the main solvent exposure route is through inhalation. The number two exposure route is through skin absorption. And the third, and that's the least likely, is through ingestion. But all of these pertain to the operators and actually ambient area personnel. So once the final risk evaluations are released, what happens next? Well, the next step required by the EPA is to develop an action plan to reduce, restrict, or eliminate the unreasonable risk. And in my professional opinion, most times the unreasonable risks are eliminated. The time frame is due 1 year from the official release date as previously shown on the charts. And the final rule is due 2 years from the official release date. And if you look at the exact EPA procedure, how they do this, they basically, once the chemicals have been identified, in this case, it was TCE, NPB, PCE, methylene chloride, and NMP, they develop a team to do the risk analysis. And the final reports were issued for these five chemicals in 2020. The next step was that after the final rule is issued, the enactment or the final rule is due 2 years after report. And in a recent update, new revisions were just released in June and July of 2022. So they're very current. And what are these new release draft revisions? It's for the ECEL. That means existing chemical exposure limit. The old terminology was operator exposure limit or allowable part per million. The new terminology refers to these solvents as a whole chemical substance that presents unreasonable risk to human health. That means not just specific applications, but everything that this chemical is involved with. And the exposure limits are rated for chlorinated and brominated solvents for 8 hours time weighted average. And if you look at the chart, and if you look at different chemicals that's listed on the left hand side, and all the previous designations for the allowable part per million exposure limits, go to the far right, and in the red, you'll see the new EPA ECEL limits. These are very low, and probably no existing open top degreaser will meet these limits in the 8 hours time weighted average for part per million exposure, and very few vacuum degreasers will meet this. If you're using these solvents, you need to be proactive. You need to be prepared because phase one has already been completed for these specific solvents. Phase two is underway now. Phase three is expected in 2022. And in 2023, the regulations enactment will probably become law. And these rulings pertain to workers and occupational non users, ONUS, which means ambient area personnel. So it's not only the operator of the degreaser system, but it's the people in the departments. It may refer to the whole plant once the testing has been confirmed. Early 2023 is the expected release date of the final ruling, as per the information we've been able to obtain. So you need to mark your calendars if you're using these solvents because phase out will probably occur in 2023. And if you look at the ECEL exact statement from the EPA, this is a legally enforceable exposure limit as stated in EPA public documents. This means that it will be subject to fines or litigation or possible shutdown of your production if you're in violation of these limits. So you have time to consider, but change is going to happen. You look at the E, H, and S concerns first. If you're using solvent and must use solvent, do you stay or do you change to another process? How will change affect production issues? And what is your total operational cost? And non-compliance is not an option. So what do you want to accomplish? Well, you want to make things better. You want to switch to environmentally green cleaning process. And key factors involved in that, if you're using solvent again by choice or necessity, the future is viable using modern solvent technology. The verification of the removal of manufacturing or other soils from the final product is paramount. This must be observed in order to get your parts clean and out the door. The process does not contribute to EH&S issues. You want it clean and green. So how do you future proof your options? In my professional opinion, you have three alternatives. The first one is an aqueous process. You convert from a solvent degreasing process to an aqueous cleaning process. The second one is alternative solvent. If you must use solvent and you're staying with your plan on staying with your existing equipment, then you can, for a short-term limit, install an alternate solvent that would basically provide you with your production needs. Or the convert to a vacuum degreasing technology, which is the fastest growing global market in the future. How do you do this? When you look at your options, you need to use the funnel. You identify the traditional solvent to be replaced within a certain time frame. You identify potential replacement candidates or the process that best suits your needs. You confirm the green properties and regulatory approvals of the process you have selected. You match the performance to production requirements. You evaluate long-term future sustainability. You determine the true operational cost. You confirm local regulatory compliance and implement the conversion, and that gets you to your final selection, which is the future proofing of your system. So again, the future proof options number one, convert from solvent to an aqueous process if possible. Aqueous processes, the benefits are many, environmentally friendly, simple operation. The chemistry is typically at a 10% concentration, not full strength, that reduces your operational cost. Lower EH&S concerns are generally associated with aqueous chemistry. Specific applications need to be considered. And there's the various brands of models of machinery that is available that has options such as ultrasonics, turbulation, agitation, and sprays, and much more. The second future proof option is to replace your existing solvent with another type in your degreaser. This can easily be done by converting over to a transblend or an HFO or HFE. This is the most common in the market today to replace the solvents in question. And it allows you flexibility to use your existing machine. Transblends may have future issues, as well as other solvents. You may consider going to a new modern degreaser. Much like automobiles that get much better gas mileage today than the older versions, the new degreasers are more solvent conservative, energy efficient. They offer automated process control and improved EH&S concerns. The third option is future proof your system by converting to a vacuum degreaser. These machines are isolated. They function with green solvents such as modified alcohol and hydrocarbons, and they offer the maximum cleaning at maximum protection. I have a short video that shows the systems. The parts are inserted into a vacuum chamber. Parts can be sprayed in air or they can be immersed with ultrasonics or any options of such. The operators are isolated. The ambient temp area is isolated and allows the most maximum efficiency. Vacuum degreasing offers better cleaning due to low surface tension of the solvents, the continuous removal of contaminants, and modified alcohol is flexible to offer cleaning with polar and nonpolar soils. They're green, there's zero emissions under vacuum operations, and the most important, in my opinion, is the parts are dry, they come out, no drag out of the solvent. They offer lower operation costs through lower energy, very low solvent consumption, and stability of the solvent, no stabilizers needed or testing needed. They're safe, they reduce human exposure, they're not listed as a HAP by the EPA, and they have global approval. So form your team, find the right fit, the cost of compliance, the cost to change the process, the cost of quality, and the cost of operation. Because you need to remember the EPA clock is ticking on these traditional solvents. The cost of failure can be dramatic and disruptive in your operation. If you need to change, you need to change quickly, you need advanced plan. While any future forecast is uncertain, the move to phase out several solvents is certain and underway now. Don't be caught waiting. Kaizen provides technical solutions for environmentally preferred cleaning. And the best deal of the day, these services and solutions are free. This is our world. Let's take care of it, and all of us who live here today. As we move on, the most frequently asked questions that I receive on this topic is if my company elects to use solvent degreasing by necessity or choice, what solvent process do you consider best for long-term future? Vacuum degreasing is the fastest growing global cleaning process to replace traditional solvents in the world today. Process is isolated the, from the ambient area, the operator, the parts are cleaned, they come out clean, rinsed, dried, all in one machine at very low cost. The next question, where can I find the latest information on existing solvent regulatory status? This is very easy. The EPA has several sites, not only for specific solvents that you enter, but also go to the TSCA site, Toxic Substance Control Act, and you'll find a list of the solvents and the latest rules and regulations. We also have these available if you need copies of them. Will degreaser operators and other personnel in the vicinity be subject to recommended exposure limits? As per the latest draft revision, the exposure limits, the ECEL, will cover all of the workers and the non occupational workers in the area. So at this point, you need to consider that very strongly because that will be a prerequisite that you prove that the part per million of any machine using those solvents meets those limits. Last, what is the expected date when the new regulations will become law? As you saw earlier, it's basically 1 year to develop the report, 2 years for the final ruling, and then that can be extended as per the decision of the EPA. We fully expect these laws to come into enactment in 2023, if not early 2024. And with that, thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Thank you all for watching this Tech to Tech session. If you would like to discuss this topic further or have any questions not answered in the session, please contact your local Kaizen regional manager or send an email to tech@kaizen.com, and we will have someone follow up with you as soon as possible. Do you want to have exclusive access to future content sent directly to your inbox, or do you know someone who would benefit from these sessions? If the answer is yes, just go to tech2tech.kaizen.com and fill out the subscription form. And if you like this video, be sure to follow us on our social media platforms for more expert cleaning content.